We are at Pawan Palace in Jodhpur. Well, this palace is divided into three functional parts. The residence of royal family, the luxurious Taj Palace Hotel, and another part is the museum which focuses on the 20th century history of royal family. This palace started building in 1929 and the construction work completed in 14 years. And now we are going to meet the Maharaja of Jodhpur, Maharaja Gut Singh. Let's go and meet him.
I see myself as a cultural ambassador for Jodhpur, a link between the past and the present, and also looking into the future. You have to look at water holistically. Yeah. And you have to look at water as a resource which is a public resource. It's not a private resource. That lake is slowly dying because people want to farm the land, they want the water to recede very fast so they can start farming, and they built in the like for instance the whole drainage system of the city is boiled down. Today you have one proper good rain, and in the old city the water is flowing. This wasn't the case before. It would just flow off, and because now all the levels have gone out of gear. The old drainage system is out of gear, and if you see the development of Jodhpur over 500 years, it is all developed around the hill and with water in mind. So all the water that fell on the hills in the neighboring surrounding hills was actually channeled into different lakes, and then from lakes into small talabs, and then coming down into the bowries, the step wells in the city. Even so, we should not ignore that, and we have, I think, over 400 different kinds of water bodies in the old city, like bowries and chardas and wells and so on. They're architecturally very, very fine, and also something to see and keep clean, and it's part of our heritage. And they can also act as an emergency source of water if required.
We are at one of the largest royal residencies in the world, Pawan Palace, and we have come to meet Maharaja Gut Singh. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Welcome to you too.
So, sir, thank you so much, and I would like to ask you that how do you see yourself as Maharaja, as mentor of people, or as a protector of city?
I see myself as a cultural ambassador for Jodhpur, a link between the past and the present, and also looking into the future.
People still call you Maharaja. So how do you see role of royalty in New Age India?
I think, every family, everyone has adapted to the circumstances, and you have to reinvent yourself. And I certainly believe in my hereditary role and responsibility to the city and connection with the city and the culture of this place. And so that's what I set about doing. I converted this place into a hotel, and then I got the Mehrangarh Museum Trust going, which is actually the repository of our cultural assets, and more than just a museum, it's now a whole cultural center. We have festivals there, local music and lecture series and various other activities.
So, tell us your experience about taking Mehrangarh Port to the world. You are organizing exhibitions in different countries.
Yes, we started off small, and we've been having exhibitions in various countries. One of the biggest one was the government initiative in Festival of India in New York, and we participated in that in a big way. We took the Mughal tent, which was the centerpiece, 17th century Mughal tent, centerpiece of the exhibition. And we've been to Japan, we've been to Germany, UK of course. At VNA they had also a big exhibition. And recently we have one exhibition traveling. This is actually the biggest single exhibition we've done, which is virtually entirely collection of my family in the Mehrangarh Museum Trust. And so that went to Houston, Seattle, and now it's in Toronto, and it'll be coming back soon. And I went for the opening of all three places.
So Rajasthan is one of the favorite tourist destinations in India. Rajasthan is known for its royal style, its hospitality, and royal icons. So what next?
Well, Rajasthan is, I think, appeals to people because it's what people expect of India. The palaces and forts and the kings and the colourful festivals. And I think now, more than just showcasing monuments, I think people are looking for experiences. And we have a movement now in Rajasthan, which has now grown across the country, of heritage hotels, which are the smaller hotels which are more in the interiors, owned by the noble families. And so that's making people stay longer. Earlier it was just, when I came back from England in 1970 after university, Rajasthan was basically the Golden Triangle, Delhi, Agra, Jaipur. Then gradually Udaipur came into the picture, then Jodhpur came into the picture. But now, with these satellite properties, people are spending more time. They can do a circuit. Which can include Jaipur, Jodhpur and Udaipur, but in between they can go to various places, Pushkar, Jaisalmer, even smaller places, and that gives them more of a feel of India and how people lived in the old days and the culture.
So, sir, you were ambassador to several countries. You have traveled across India. So, what new element you believe should be injected in the tourism policy of India?
I think we should present what we know best to do. Of course, hospitality and the modern amenities have to be there. So cleanliness and hygiene and all that has to be there. But then it's not necessary to imitate the West. We should do things in our own way and present our own lifestyle, our cuisine, our foods, our music, and the decor. There's so much in India, and this is what people come to see. And I think that's the experience that people are looking at, and also that also involves a larger spectrum of people, and the various crafts and the artisans and the builders. They all get involved.
So, according to you, how can we make our cities more tourist friendly, and especially Jodhpur?
I think firstly, we have to be very careful about how, particularly with heritage cities like Jodhpur, how we take development forward. And there I see, unfortunately, there's a mismatch. People are not careful enough about protecting the heritage assets. While, of course, development has to take place, nobody says it should not. But like high-rise buildings and so on should be kept away from the old part of the city. There could be new areas where you have high-rise buildings. The infrastructure, the approach to various monuments and things should be kept clean, free of encroachments and free of things that are incongruous.
Okay.
Like you see the road to the fort. I've been fighting this battle for a long time. They're building right up against the wall, and you used to get a very good view of the fort while driving up, but now there are buildings right up against the wall, blocking that view, and a lot of that is unauthorized. So I think it should be a planned development, and with the whole development plan and the whole economic plan, culture and tourism should be integrated. That's important.
So how can Jodhpur be made more prominent on global map as a center of Marwari culture, which you are promoting?
It's getting there, and I think we reached a good area of place where Jodhpur is now in demand. People are looking at it as a niche area to go to. We're not overrun by tourists. Again, that's another big danger also. Like Jaisalmer is a small town, very beautiful, but it's actually now today it's swamped by tourism. And so I think you have to find the right balance.
Right.
And also involve. It should add to the economy of the city. So it shouldn't just be the monuments and the hotels. It should be the shopping experiences, the restaurants, the old cityscape. Which is a wonderful old city that should be preserved and kept clean, where people can walk and experience life of the people. And we're getting there, slowly we're having it, but I'm a bit concerned about how there's a lot of encroachment, but the additions that are happening in the old city, I think they need to be controlled. It's already very crowded and congested. You don't need to have additional floors put on. There's no parking, there's problems with the water and so on. So I think the old cities require a different kind of development plan, and that needs to be done.
So you are in a way talking about architecture of Jodhpur city. So it has its own uniqueness. How can we, what is your suggestion on maintaining the uniqueness of architecture of Jodhpur? Are things changing, or what do you suggest to maintain?
Jodhpur has a strong and very sort of bold, robust architecture, and that is largely because of the stone we have here. So I think the first thing is that we should try and use our own stone as much as possible. And I'm not talking about and get good contemporary architecture also, but in keeping with the tradition of the place. So you don't have to imitate, not necessarily. Like we had a very good phase of development in the late 40s, just as independence was coming, and that spilled over into the 50s, when we had a whole new fate of colonies and buildings, all built in Jodhpur stone, and some of them were, and we have got the two stones, the red and the pink stone, and there's a good combination of that. But now you hardly see those things because they've all been built on, because the building rules have allowed people to build right up to the road. So you get this whole shanty town look, and so that old look has disappeared. So I think planning is very important in a city, and sensitivity to one's cultural assets has to be there, and they have to be highlighted and kept.
So sensitivity to one's
unencumbered, and also then find new uses for heritage buildings, like museums, like places for people to rest and relax, and while they're traveling, small cafes, and even we've now got some old Havelis have been converted into shops, keeping the old architecture in place, but at the same time having contemporary designs in them, and that is working very well.
So you are also working on water issue, and we are sitting in Jodhpur, desert city Jodhpur, and like other places, Rajasthan is also facing water scarcity like other places in India. So what do you think, how can it addressed at public and government level? What are your suggestions?
Well, first of all, I think we should look at our past and learn from that in development. And if you see the development of Jodhpur over 500 years, it is all developed around the hill and with water in mind. So all the water that fell on the hills, in the neighboring surrounding hills, was actually channeled into different lakes, and then from lakes into small talabs, and then coming down into the bawdis, the step wells in the city. And that was the water supply. Now, of course, we're getting water supply from the Indira Canal and from the Punjab, thereabouts, because the city has grown so much. But even so, we should not ignore that. And we have, I think, over 400 different kinds of water bodies in the old city, like bawdis and charlas and wells and so on. And so there is a move now to try and restore them. Not so much as a source of water, but at least that they're architecturally very, very fine, and also something to see and keep clean, and it's part of our heritage. And they can also act as an emergency source of water if required. But no, what's happening now in Jodhpur also, it's an irony, is that because we're getting water from outside, and these old water bodies which are not being used anymore, some of them become garbage dumps. The subsoil water has come up in Jodhpur.
Yes.
And so in the old city, some of the basements in the old houses are facing this problem. So, and the water actually is being pumped out and thrown out into some of the farms in the local areas. But it's not very good water because it's also mixed with sewage and stuff. So that's another problem.
So now you have talked about there are reservoirs in the city. We had sufficient. Jodhpur city was planned in such a manner that we had all the relevant water architecture of the city was such that it was sufficient to supply water to the city throughout.
Up to a certain level of population.
Up to certain level of population, but there are reports recently. There are reports recently which say that these water reservoirs either being disturbed, or the catchment areas being disturbed, or the waterways have been disturbed from where the water comes to these reservoirs.
It's true. There's rampant quarrying going on in the hills for. Who takes the example of Balsamand? We've gone to the Green Tribunal, and they've recently given a very strong judgment. Because they don't know where the forestry land is, where the mining land is. The government has been asked to provide a map. They don't even have a proper map. And so therefore it's all been stopped. But it's taken a long time, and the damage is already done. So that way, even other like in Jaipur, Ramgarh Lake, where in the 80s, in the first Asian Games, the aquatic sport was held there. Today there's nothing. There's no water for the last 5-6 years. It's finished because people have done. They built in the catchment areas. They blocked the water, and so on. So it is very important. The Supreme Court has been come down very heavily on this, but implementation is a great problem. And so, I mean, everybody, the administration and people have to be completely alert and prevent all this, because it's all short-term measures. It's a local politician in the local area want to supply for his village. He'll say, drop it here, make a thing. But no one takes the whole thing holistically. You have to look at water holistically. And you have to look at water as a resource, which is a public resource. It's not a private resource.
Yes. So another example, and that could be a tip of the iceberg, Umeed Sagar Dam in Jodhpur, where encroachment has taken place. The leading newspaper in Jodhpur are publishing about it, how that area been encroached, and negligence of authorities. So what you have to say about that?
Well, that's also right. You're well informed. That lake is slowly dying because people want to farm the land. They want the water to recede very fast, so they can start farming. And they built they built in the catchment area and in the lake bed. And actually, they're now in some places they're filling up lake beds and building. And therefore, this happened in Ajmer also at Anasagar. This time they had a lot of water and there were floods, and people's homes were submerged, but they're not supposed to be there anyway. I think one needs stricter regulations. We have the regulations, but implementation of regulations. We don't need new regulations, but we have to implement those things. And it has to be a public issue. Everybody has to be alert. We got good press now highlighting these things, but you have to have the political will to put it right.
So how can the protector or mentor of people of Jodhpur can turn into a savior of its water, or to protect the water reservoirs?
There are, people are, certain groups of people are getting together, and they're at least trying to protect their own small area. And it's happening, and even in the villages, some of the common lands have been encroached upon, and they've gone to court, and they've managed to save the catchment areas. Because they're now much more aware. Early on, people were to take things for granted. Everything was left to the government, and you just can't leave everything to government. You have to now, you have to have voice of the people, and they must assert their will to see that things don't go wrong or not done wrong, deliberately wrong or neglected. It needs awareness, and I think we have this Swachh Bharat and everything. Prime Minister is leading from the top. It's a wonderful thing, because for the first time we have a Prime Minister addressing these issues right from the top. And now I believe we're going to have a proper law on plastics, first use plastics. These are all necessary, because Indians, by and large, their personal hygiene is better than most people. But the public spirit is totally lacking.
Yeah, so somewhere negligence from authorities who are responsible for it, and it is the constituency, parliamentary constituency of Jal Shakti Minister Kajendra Singh Shekhawat. It is Vidhan Sabha seat of Chief Minister of the state.
He's got a very important portfolio.
And now, since you are working on water issues, so looking at the present scenario of water in Jodhpur city, if I may ask you that how you would like to take up the water issue of the city or preserve these water reservoirs?
City, as I said, city is getting water from outside. So actually we're better off than most cities. But still, that doesn't mean we should neglect. First of all, local habits have to change. Everyone must preserve water, not waste it unnecessarily, just because it's there. And secondly, even the old water system should be preserved and kept intact, because in case of emergency or whatever the case may be, these are two things that need to be done. We've been working I have a foundation called Jal Bhagirathi Foundation. We've been working in rural areas where we encourage people to actually go back to the old systems, what they knew best, making small talavs. And those small talavs used to be desilted regularly by all the village acting together, regardless of caste or creed. And depending on your rank or whatever, either you paid somebody to do it or you did it yourself, but everybody was involved in the process of desilting and keeping the talav clean, because that is what provided them water for a few months. Some of the bigger ones maybe throughout the year, but at least they recharge their wells, neighboring wells, and that would take you through the year. And it also recharges the subsoil water. Today the subsoil water has all been pumped out by the PHED to supply water. And you've got these village schemes, water schemes. But in actual fact, in summer, either they don't work or that water is undrinkable. It's like seawater. So, therefore, it's very important to preserve the rainwater that falls within the village. And you make these talavs and also tankas, underground tanks, for each home, private tankas or community tankas, to preserve the water and keep it in dark so it stays clean. And now we've introduced also roof water harvesting, particularly in schools and things, so that then the children look after that, make a tanka and roof water harvesting, and even in the homes. And then that also linked up with the toilets now, the whole toilet scheme. We'd begun that earlier, even before the Prime Minister's scheme. But that's the next thing about hygiene, because water has to be kept clean. And so I think everyone has to be involved in the entire process and be aware of the fact that water is not the limitless commodity as it once was. The world is growing. We're using a lot of water. We're using a lot of water for industry. We're using water for agriculture. In fact, the amount of water used for agriculture is much more than we should be using, and we're not getting the returns. The whole pattern of agriculture has to be re-looked at.
The whole pattern has to be re-looked at. So, smart city will take time, but traditionally, haven't we lived in sustainable cities as far as water architecture of the city is concerned?
Yes, but I think, as I said before, lifestyle has changed, and the pressure, much more pressure of population. So we have not adapted. We have not adapted those systems. We rather forgotten those systems, introduced new systems, and which had sometimes at cross purposes, instead of integrating them. Like for instance, the whole drainage system of the city is boiled down. Today you have one proper good rain, and in the old city the water is flowing. This wasn't the case before. It would just flow off, and because now all the levels have gone out of gear. The old drainage system is out of gear. And if you see in Rajasthan, all the old cities, most of them are built on the side of hills, so that there's water collection and the drain off also happening. And a few years ago we had floods in Jaipur. The old city was all right. It's a new city that who had big problems because of lack of proper planning. So one has to adapt and adjust to the situation. We have to learn from the past wisdom.
Yes.
And of course, we're now fortunate to have technology on our side and use it to the best ability that we can.
Yeah. So you talked about...
even though you're talking about smart city, we have a... Jodhpur was not left out in the smart city. I think now they're trying to add it. But as you said, it'll take time. But we have an initiative called the Jodhpur Initiative. We were working with the Jodhpur IIT, who have made a long-term plan of what's required to be done. And in fact, the Finance Commission is here today, and they're having a meeting. And the former director of the IIT is going to make a presentation to them with that plan, which was made in conjunction not only just the IIT, which is a specialist, but with other official bodies and local people. So it's a combination of all the people who are interested in the development city, putting their heads together and working out something. But then it needs the government to adopt it. So that I hope something will come of this meeting.
So, and you talked about the problem of rising population. What, in your opinion, has gone wrong with the planning of the city, and do you have any solution in mind?
Planning is in all our cities. It's the same. The growth of the city is kind of organic. No one has, in fact, the first development post, the first city was within the walls. In my grandfather's time, they developed a few colonies outside, and so it moved on, and those colonies came up well. And now there's more development outside, but in between, everything then just got crammed into what we had. And allowing, as I was saying, high rise to come in high density areas is not advisable. You move out. It's not a land. One has to plan. One has to plan the facilities also that go with the population, the schools, the hospitals, and other facilities. And I think satellite cities make more sense. And transportation also, and public transportation is also very important. We have now, if you see, if you go around Jodhpur, you will see hardly any pavements because they've all been encroached on. And that's the worst, because people are walking on the road. Sometimes we don't think about the common people. We don't think about cars and things, making flyovers, which they're doing, making over bridges and this, that, the other, which is fine up to a point. But I think some money should be spent also on the actual existing structures.
Yes.
For the local people. Bicycle lanes. Now it's not possible anymore because there's no space. But at least for the pedestrians, you have no vehicle zones also, like in the old city you can have certain timings. And it's a beautiful place to walk, but today it's very difficult to walk around. All the tourists go there, they love it, but it's full of traffic going every direction. Scooters, especially two-wheelers.
So the city needs some planning, and I think authorities have to give an ear to it.
Regulations, it's all doable. You have, the old city in Geneva.
Yes.
The old city, and there they have very strict traffic rules, and you can't take a car in there. And people who live there think it's a privilege. It may be a little inconvenient, certain things, but people actually think it's a privilege living in the old city, because and they're proud of it. And there's some rules and regulations. They have some facilities that they can take their car at certain times, and the sort of delivery vans and things come at different times. But it's doable as long as somebody puts their mind to it. And what happened in India is everything happened very fast. In the whole progress, how the city has grown from the time of independence, when Jodhpur city and Jaipur city were about the same size, just about over 2 lakhs. And Jaipur has grown even more than Jodhpur. Jodhpur is now 1.5 million, and Jaipur must be about 3.5 million. That's in the space of time how the cities have grown.
Yes. So So, I mean, in your opinion, how can we find solution to all these issues? You are a Maharaja of Jodhpur.
You can't find solution, but one has to be concerned and one has to be aware and one has to keep working at it all the time, try and influence things, get people to take things into their own hands. Like for instance, one of the earlier collectors tried a scheme whereby they were asked to pay only 100 rupees to segregate and have special garbage cleared from there and go to they created a recycling plant or something. But that also needs to be fed with garbage to work successfully. But no one was prepared to pay 100 rupees. So that also, you complain at one level, but I think the responsibility of the public is also very big. You have to take some pride in it.
Can royalties contribute in some way in resolving these issues?
I'm involved in various things. We're working at it. We have Intact Chapter working here, and we have programs with Merangat. I have my schools. We have programs with them, and as I said, we got this Jodhpur initiative on which we're working. So it needs a ritual.
You're in talk with authorities?
Yes.
Okay. So now my last question, you served as a member of parliament. So what is your experience would you like to share with us?
I'm very glad I did it, and because it gave me an idea of seeing things how work and seeing things up front, but then I realized it's not for me. Because to be a successful parliamentarian you have to be out quite a lot in Delhi and lobby and so on. Also you have to be a member of a political party, and I didn't want to be. I remained independent because for my role here I think being independent is more important.
Okay.
And then at least people from all sides you can interact with. And I didn't have the voice. In Parliament I noticed that there are only two kinds of people who actually come across successfully. Those who shout and scream, and they get more reportage in the press than somebody who's prepared very well and made a speech and presented something. He gets 2 lines, and somebody who shouts and screams gets a whole paragraph. And of course lawyers do well in Parliament.
Okay.
So anyway, I realized it wasn't for me. I mean, it takes different kind of people, and I felt I'm better off here and working with my own foundations and NGOs and doing things, maybe small, but it's still it's more satisfying.
As a parliamentarian, that career was not for you.
No.
Not for you.
No.
Okay, thank you so much, Maharaja Gat Singh
of
Jodhpur, for talking to us and sharing your opinion on various subjects, from water to architecture to culture to Jodhpuri heritage and many other things. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice talking to you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure talking to you.